Or here we go. Okay, so welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us in this conversation today. We're going to be talking a lot about early literacy and some things that are going really well with early literacy practices around our state. And we're just going to have everybody start off by introducing themselves. So Julie, do you want to go first?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me today. My name is Julie Clark. I am the Literacy and Early Learning Coordinator at the Utah State Board of Education, and I'm happy to be here and be a part of this today. Thank you.
Jake, you want to go next?
Yeah, my name is Jake Downs. I'm an assistant professor at Utah State University, and I was one that did the data collection and interviewing associated with the project.
Some things. And then Shannon, you want to start off and introduce your team?
Sure. I'm Shannon Eves, and I'm the learning coach here at LaVerkin Elementary. And so my role is to support the teachers here at the school. And I just kind of consider myself like their biggest cheerleader. So for my team.
Some things. Robin, you want to go next? You're muted.
Unmute. I just got so excited.
I'm
Robin Mortensen. I'm a kindergarten teacher at LaVerkin Elementary.
All right, Lacey.
I'm Lacey Van Dam, and I'm a kindergarten teacher here at LaVerkin Elementary.
All right, and Paula, you round us out.
Hi, I'm Paula Armstrong. I'm also I'm a kindergarten teacher here at LaVerkin Elementary.
Great. And I'm Megan Everett. I am the director of ULEAD, and I'll just be playing host and facilitator today. While we have kindergarten teams here, Jake's report actually did cover up through third grade. And so we're going to be hearing from them, but then also hear from a variety of perspectives. I'm going to go ahead and share just briefly a little bit about ULEAD, so you know who is talking to you today. So ULEAD, it stands for Utah Leading Through Effective, Actionable, Dynamic Education, and we're housed at the State Office of Education, and we have four purposes. So to find and research what's going really well in our schools, to curate those together into a repository that other people can access, to connect people not only to that repository, but to each other, to promote innovative and collaborative practices across the state. And then we report back and share on those practices to the state so that hopefully they can eliminate some barriers for teachers to engage in the same kind of work. And our practice kind of looks like this. We look at the data and we say quantitatively, what is going really well? Where can we see really bright spots? And then we work with higher education research partners, like we did in this case, to go look at that practice from a qualitative lens and kind of tease out the differences of what's having an effect at this school or in this LEA. We talk about how that could be replicated or adopted in other areas of the state, and then we share and connect people in a lot of different ways, but one of which is webinars like this. We have a set of focus priorities. So when you think about the topics we focus on, we have a steering committee that's made up of both traditional, public, and charter schools. We have representatives from superintendency, principals, and teachers, and they tell us the things that are really important to them. We look for those outlier LEAs, schools, and teachers, and then we also partner with researchers. So today, when we're talking about early literacy practices, we know that's something that's been on a lot of people's minds as they've started to implement letters and make a lot of changes in their classrooms. And that is the shortest of introductions of ULEAD. So we'll go back to our team here and we will begin our discussion. So this question is for everybody, but I think Julie, you'd probably be best to start us off. Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on in Utah big picture with literacy right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a bill that was run in 2022 called, we often refer to it as SB 127, and it is our early learning outcomes bill. And with that bill comes a lot of things where we're working on focusing on supporting systems and then teachers and educators, you know, all the way down from from the top down, working to build their capacity in their knowledge, and then also focusing on that implementation piece. So after they gain that knowledge, how can we implement those practices that they've learned into the classroom? A big part of that was letters, and looking to provide that knowledge and support to teachers through the letters, which, you know, stands for excuse me, I'm sorry. Language essentials for teachers of reading and spelling. And so we provided that to all K-3 teachers, and then the administrators also participated in letters for admin to support from the admin level. We also had coaches participate in it, as well as school psychologists, as you know, a lot of our struggling students need to have that support, and those school psychologists really need to know that information as well. And so by doing that, that gave the teachers the knowledge. But what we need to do from here is work on that implementation piece, taking that and putting it into practice so that we can actually see student outcomes change. And so that is where we're at and what we're kind of focusing on right now across the state. And I will pass it on to some others.
That's great. So I'm assuming in Washington County, you've all participated in letters. Can you tell us anything about kind of your implementation or where you're at with that?
I'll answer that, and then I'll let the teachers jump in too. We worked hard to get all of our teachers letters trained who are teaching the early grades. So our kindergarten team finished their second year of letters last year, and they jumped into implementing those practices as they were learning them, and continue to do that.
Okay.
What? Okay, so Robin just reached over and was like, "Hey, that's you. How are we implementing letters?" So I think we do it almost on like a daily scale. With our reading instructions, just all of the components that it talked about, like your phoneme, mapping, grapheme, just the little like tidbits that we've learned from that. We take it and we apply it in our daily instruction in our small group. We apply it in our whole group. And it's just a lot of that explicit and evidence-based practices. And also, the thing that I really love about it is that we kind of dive a little bit deeper than just the superficial level. We are getting deeper and trying to find out the why behind like the reading and the spelling, or why do we do this? And I think also part of that, when we stop and we can dive deeper into it, the kids are actually interested, like it sparks their interest, and it helps them gather questions about it. And then it creates a really good communication and collaboration among peers and students, and just open dialogue across the board for it. I think that's all.
Yeah, that's really great. I'll give anybody a chance to add on if they want to jump in.
I'll add that I think just as a team, when we were implementing new things, letters or anything, it kind of helped as a team when
You need to unmute.
No, she's unmuted.
Okay,
We can hear
her. I think it helped that especially one of us, Lacey, seemed to get really passionate about it, and it helped the rest of our team. For a really, really personal example, I've been teaching a few years, and I've seen just over the few years of teaching how things can kind of come and new information and changes, but a few years later or the next year, there's more information and more changes. And so maybe the lazy educator in me, I can get new information now and think, so it kind of helped as a team that some of us became really passionate and very knowledgeable, and just helped our team, and which helped the students in turn.
Yeah, that's really great to hear. Go ahead, Julie.
I was going to say, I just wanted to jump in and say, it takes a team to be able to do this. And we are, that's something that we're also looking at is we have our teachers, but they need to be supported by amazing coaches like Shannon. And then also having administrators that are on board to set the expectation and of the implementation and the work, so it takes a team, it takes a village to get it done, right? And so our LaVerkin educators are such an amazing example of having that support system for each other to build each other up and strengthen each other and support each other through this change. And being an example and being a help and being that support all the way around from the ground up is what we're looking for. So they're a great example of that implementation piece.
That's great. And I know that's a team that I would want to work on, right? A team that works together in that way. So let's take a few minutes and understand, like, how do we end up here? Why are we talking to this group of people? And Jake, this is kind of goes to you. So we want to understand, what's going on in the world of research with our early literacy space, and then what did you specifically do?
Yeah, so this was a really great project for me to be involved with. I was hired last year as the science of reading person at Utah State University. So my role is split half between supporting our undergraduates and preparing them to be classroom teachers, and then also I have this research load where I have the opportunity to go and study the science of reading out in classrooms. And so what interested me was, I'm very interested in growth. I want to know, okay, where are there classrooms where great things are happening, and then what are the things that contribute to that? A lot of times in research, individual practices are studied in isolation. So you have a vocabulary study or a phonics study or a spelling study, but teachers are the ones that are sort of required to mesh this whole research base together. And so I wanted to look at, I wanted to find teacher teams, a PLC team, a grade level team that were making a big difference. It's one thing, and it's a great thing to have teachers, individual classrooms that are outliers, they're making extreme growth, but how does that look in a system of a grade level team? So I partnered with Washington County School District. They're a district that over the last few years has gained, I think, a bit of a reputation in the state for adopting science reading practices and moving in that direction. And I also feel that they have a strong PLC model which could facilitate grade level success. So last year I partnered with them. I took their Acadience data from beginning of year to middle of year. And then from that, I just calculated an effect size for each grade level by each school. And I went and did a half-day focus group interview with the grade level teams that had the most growth from beginning of year to middle of year. So I had 2 interviews in kindergarten, 1 for Title I, 1 for non-Title I, 2 in first grade, 2 in second grade, and then only 1 in third grade. And this was the kindergarten team I selected to pick because they were very representative of the themes that I found across all of these transcripts that I went through and analyzed after the fact. Should I just jump into the themes and what those were?
Yeah, that'd be great. So you worked with our office to go out and do this research. I mean, you did the work, let's be honest, but then you reported them back to us, right? And we were able to share them out in this report that others can learn from, in addition to hearing from teachers in a setting like this. So in that report, you found a couple big things, right? That were pretty similar across the different teams.
Yeah, and I'll just throw out, I think this is a great example of how like higher ed, state board, districts and schools, I think this type of thing is a great opportunity for shared interest. So thanks for the opportunity. But yeah, the 4 themes I found, theme number 1 was the grade level teams I interviewed were very student oriented and very learning oriented. The second theme was that they were also very goal oriented. The third theme was that continuous collaboration. They were fantastic collaborators as a grade level team. And then I also found that the 4th theme was that they would frequently mention that there's a lot of great school and district supports that are there to help them make the difference in their classrooms.
Great, that's awesome. We did have a question in the chat, and I encourage people, if you are listening, to add questions throughout. We'll answer them at the end, but this one might be important to address before we get too far in. They were wondering, what does your PLC model look like? Because we know that that's a big piece of what was studied here. And then can you tell us a little bit about your school in terms of size? How many students do you each have? What's kind of your makeup?
I just wonder if that first question, that would go really good under theme 3. So I wonder if we can stick a pin in that till we kind of get to that
Yeah.
area. But it would be
Hold on
great
to
to
that.
know some background and demographic information about the school.
Our school, I'll jump into our school and then let them talk about their individual classes. Our school is K-5. We have a preschool in our school that also counts toward our demographic numbers wise. This year we have a little over 400 students K-5. So we've grown. That's about 60 more students than we had last year. So this year it's a little bit different, but we are going with it, and I'll let them talk about their demographics of their own classes.
So last year, my class, I had 18 students. This year, I have 24 students. Last year, I'm trying to remember because this year has been a little more overwhelming. But last year we had, and Lacey and Robin can jump in here. I don't know what demographics you want to know, like how many ESL students or we had last year or anything like that, or SPED students, or just the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, I think knowing that you've had classrooms anywhere from, like you said, 18 to 24, I do have your information pulled up that was in our report. So, you know, you are a Title I school, right? With about 56% of students are from low income backgrounds. You're about 14% racial minority in your school. It doesn't look like English learners are a huge portion of your population. Certainly you have a few, with about 5%, and then students with disabilities is about 16%. I want to say the state average on that is around 9 or 10%, and so that's just slightly higher. But I was going to pop this in the chat, and just as a reminder, this is one grade level and school that was represented in the report, but there were actually 6 different schools included, and 3 of those were Title I schools, just kind of to give you a little bit of a picture of the differences in demographics that might have occurred. So we'll jump into talking about these kind of themes that Jake brought up, and here's where we really want to hear from teachers, but also, of course, Jake, Shannon, everybody, Julie, chime in if you have something to say. So the first thing that you found was that these teams were all very student learning oriented. So in the report, it talks about there's evidence that teachers are really setting the bar high or have high expectations for students. So how do you go about accomplishing setting the bar high for your kindergartners in literacy?
I'll say something. I'll start. I think when most of us have only been together in kindergarten for just a couple of years or a few years. And when we started, Paul and I started together a few years ago when our district announced or started having full day kindergarten. And we were overwhelmed at the expectation that we were told for certain literacy expectations that they would have for kindergartners, and thought there's no way they can do that. But after that year, they could do that. I think it was a little bit of a lesson to us that when the expectations were there and the time, obviously it was full day kindergarten, so the time that we had to do more activities with them and more, diving deeper, or the interventions that were needed, we could have. It kind of showed us that having those expectations was a possibility, that they can do it.
And one thing that has been really great with Robin is that she tracked really closely what we were doing. So we had our goals, but we received, and this was the PLC question that we were going to get to, but every PLC meeting we went to, we knew exactly where our students were. I didn't have a lot of experience with tracking data. I mean, like Robin loved it. So we would come in and we would know exactly where our kids were. And so we could talk about, okay, who needs help? How can we help them? And so that was one strength that Robin brought to the team, is when we sat down, we knew exactly where the kids were, who needed help, and how are we going to help them. And then the second year came, we can answer those questions, and Lacey jumped in. So
okay, so as far as, I believe, like, the question was, how do we like set our expectations, right? Kind of. Okay. I think a thing that we are really good about is we kind of have uniform expectations across every classroom in all aspects for our kindergarten team. With that being said, we've like created little videos about this is how we expect you to behave on the playgrounds, in the halls, in the lunchroom. And then with that, with this like video, so we know what's going on in everybody's classroom. But we also, because we all have these set rules, these set standards, I think that kind of carries over, that we view like our students as like they're all of our kids. It's not just like my class, my students. It's like, no, these are all of our kids. Oh, that's my kindergartner. Like, even if they're not, that's my kindergartner that's in Robin's class, or that's my kindergartner that's in Paula's class. They're all our kids. And I think we're really good about, like, it's not just one class. They're everybody. We share everybody. And then the other thing about the expectation that I think kind of relates is so right now we do this thing on Fridays where we kind of share our students, and it gives somebody a prep time. But with that, we split one of the class and they go to different classes. And when the students come into our classrooms, they know what to expect. Like, it's the same. And we always go over what our expectations are, but they're the same. And so they can pretty much repeat back what our expectations are. And so when we have like a shuffle of students for, like, say, a small reading group that is in another teacher's class, they know what's expected of them. They know how we expect them to behave. And then that also cuts down on like time. So we have more instructional time because we've taken the time ahead of it to clearly explain and define what we're looking for.
So I want to add one more thing to expectations. I read an article a few years ago about when you truly believe deep down. That year I was teaching with Jan last, and it was little, it's always hard. It's not easy to be a teacher. But I read this article that says if you really believe deep down, like, you have to believe it, that your kids can succeed, they will. So I started practicing that, and sometimes I'll bring that up with the team. You have to really believe it, though, because the kids know. They know if you're faking. So that year with Jan, I was like, you know what? Some of them, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I really believe, but I'm going to try really hard to believe that they can do this. And we're going to set this bar high and believe ourselves that it can happen. And then it did. And that first year that I practiced that was like a surprise to me, like, because maybe I didn't know if it would really work, but I tried my very best. I kept telling Chad, okay, we got to believe deep down, like really believe in our souls that they can do this. And I think that your attitude really makes a difference. Like, if you have an attitude that they can do it, it does carry over to the children, and they know. So, and I know Robin and Lacey have practiced that too, even though this year's hard. Lacey was like, last year I told my kids all the time they were the smartest and the, anyway. So attitude makes a difference.
Yeah, I'll chip in right here for a second. This was something that really stood out to me in the interviews that I will say I've actually thought about a ton since we did these in the spring, and it's I mean, yeah, like Paula just did a great job explaining, like, yes, we believe in our students, we're holding our students to high expectations, but it's also showing that they are holding themselves to high expectations. That it's not just, I mean, yes, like they can believe in their students having high expectations because they're holding themselves to high expectation. They're willing to stretch and to learn and to try new things and to sort of stay in an area of continual discomfort as they keep developing their skill as teachers. And I think that was incredibly impressive to me, was just the professionalism, the way they hold themselves to a high standard as well.
That's great. And we've heard that from some other early literacy teams that we've talked with around this idea that they're all our students and that we have to have this collective belief in our ability to teach them and their ability to succeed before we've been able to find success. We're going to move to our next theme, which was around goals. And to that point, you started to mention coming into these PLCs, kind of knowing where you're at, where you're going, those kinds of things. I would imagine for goal setting, it's really important to have your data in order. And there was a question in the chat about how is your data gathered? You know, who is doing the assessing? What assessments are you using? How are you prioritizing standards? So can you tell us a little bit about how you are kind of attacking those kind of nuts and bolts pieces?
I'll start answering these. Our district has, I don't know what the right word is, has the software, the ESGI software, that when, like I was saying, when Paula and I started with full day kindergarten, when I was starting, I'd moved to grades. And so when I was moving there and knowing that at the beginning of the year, obviously knowing letters and sounds is such a big deal, I had started making trying to get all of these pieces of information onto a piece of paper, like what would be the easiest way to constantly have this information available. And then that's when our district announced that we would have that software to use. So we use that a lot, which is a blessing because it makes it so easy to see a lot of quick information that we need to assess just throughout the year. And then we use a lot of data from Acadience or ALO. And throughout the years, a lot of it is us testing on using both of those things, us doing the testing, sometimes aides when we have the help. This year we have a really special group, so we have a little extra help, thankfully, and they get to help us a lot with a lot of the assessing, so then we can look at the data together.
That's really helpful. Can you, I don't know, Julie, Shannon, maybe you're the best one, I don't know, but what is ESGI software?
I just assumed, someone told me, it sounded like everyone knew about what it was, like the kindergarten teachers that were talking to us about. I thought, oh, everyone knows this is old news. It's essentially, I always tell people who are helping us do it, it's like flashcards on the computer. So when it's just, when we need to know what letters and sounds every kid knows, it's almost like a different set of flashcards essentially on the computer. And we just say, yes, they know it, or no, they don't. And so it's eventually gets quick once the kids know more things. But then it allows us to see exactly, like if it's letters and sounds, or if it's numbers or addition or subtraction, it allows us to see really easily exactly what each kid knows and what they are still working on.
And you can print up reports with it. So there's a parent letter you can say, send home. So it will tell you, it graphs their growth. You can print up a graph. You can print up a report that says how many letters, names, or sounds they know and how many they don't know. And then it even has a built-in letter to send home that you can edit however you want it, whatever you want it to say. So you can print up those reports. And so at the first of the year, when we're trying to get, because our district goal is to know all their letter names and letter sounds by November 1st. as we assess them each week, we print up the report, we can send it home, and then the parents can look at those reports also and say, oh, my child's missing these letters. And it will even print up flashcards. So you can print up the report with the flashcards that you can send home and say, will you please practice? And there's been times when my kids have just a few letters or sounds that they, and I'll send it home and say, hey, if you practice this over the weekend, they might be able to, they get a little ribbon when they pass it off. They're really close. And so it's really great that way because it also populates reports that you can use to keep track. So it's a great.
That sounds amazingly useful. I would imagine, though, that we have some people on listening that maybe don't have access to this. So, Julie, what might be something similar teachers might use if they didn't have this particular software?
Great question. So probably the best thing to be using would be your Acadians progress monitoring data. So that is something that is offered statewide. Everybody has access, all teachers have access to that through the ALO system. Each district and charter is for students who are below or well below benchmark is required to do a diagnostic assessment. And so each district and charter gets to select the diagnostic assessment that they want to use for those students. And so tracking would look different depending on what diagnostic assessment you were using for each of those. So, but the thing that across the board would be the ALO progress monitoring data that you could use statewide. So, yeah.
So, thank you. So just a follow-up question that we had, do you all feel like the ALO, I mean, you're using this, the ESGI, right? So do you use your ALO also, or do you,
Yes.
How do you incorporate your Acadians there?
So the ESGI, we use it for testing different things. We use it for testing like letter names and sounds so that we know where they're at on mastering those. And we use it for their sight words that we have for the curriculum. We use it for if they can read a passage, numbers, number naming fluency, that sort of a thing. The ALO or the Acadians tests your first sound fluency. It tests like phoneme segmentations, how many sounds they can hear in the word, and then their nonsense word fluency for their correct letter sounds. So it's different. Like it's used in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
The ESGI actually able to kind of like dig into it and be like, well, which letter are they continually missing? Or if they get one right 1 week and they miss it the next week, that letter's just not solid. And we don't exactly get the same printout data from ALO that we do with ESGI. So they're different. I mean, I think you could probably use ALO, but we really do use it for testing different skills.
And it sounds to me that ESGI, it sounds a little more automated, but I've definitely seen this with other early literacy teams where they have, basically their common formative assessment for sounds or blends or whatever it is, and they're tracking each kid. It just sounds like this is a little more automated, the system that you're using, whereas they're probably doing that in their classroom, more by hand per se. Well,
Yeah.
Hey, Megan, could I jump in really quick? Sorry.
Please do. Yeah.
And maybe this will provide some clarity to those that are watching and in the thing, in the webinar. But Washington School District has done an amazing job of setting what we kind of refer to as little milestone goals. So they have additional goals for their kindergarten students or first grade students that they are working on along the way throughout the year, that help them not only master additional concepts besides what ALO is assessing, but then it does help them get to those end goals for the Acadians end of year assessment. Does that make sense? So it's like little milestone goals along the way. And their I think I'm going to say it wrong. Yeah, whatever. That that is their way of tracking those milestone goals for their students along the way. to help them make sure that their students are mastering it, and it really keeps them on top of things. So it's just a little bit different, but it's an amazing system that Washington has set up to really build each individual student and be able to monitor them where they're at and help them progress onto their next skill that they're working on.
That's great. And Jake, that really aligns to me with your theme too around being goal oriented, right? You have to have the information in order to know what goals you're achieving and where you need to work more.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where, I mean, obviously the platform matters, and what ESGI is great at is getting, really, there's minimal amount of friction between collecting the data and analyzing the data, and they can do that in very ticky-tack, small, discrete things. ALO also, I've been impressed with ALO with how the data there is also frictionless, and that's really great to see trends, and it's also great to see how students' automaticity is developing, whereas ESGI might not be quite as adept at showing the automaticity part. But all of this is supported by the goal setting process. That without the goals, without working towards the goals, without tracking progress towards the goals, the platform is just a platform. So I'd like to hear a bit more about how this team, how they set goals, how they, like, what they do when they've achieved a goal, how they adapt their goals, how they break it down into benchmarks along the way. I want to hear more about the goal setting process, because that was really impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. Hit us, team. Tell us.
Robin, I feel like this is you and the leadership binders.
I agree.
Well, I feel like our goal setting before we knew, oh no, I'm gonna forget I remember the word, the name for it. On the ALL, the pathways of success. Is that the right
Pathways
word?
of progress?
No, there's a different word for it. Well,
I think it's pathways of progress.
I know that's the other word. Well,
Formula.
before we knew it,
Formula for success, right?
that's the one. Maybe I forgot all the terms clearly. Well, before we knew that there is already like created, if you need to get your kids here by the end of the year, at this point in the year, if they're gonna, be like above or at meeting what, if they need to be where they need to be, this is kind of where they should be. Before we knew, maybe I just wasn't ever listening. Before we knew that existed, we just figured we need to do that. We need to make like little stepping stones for ourselves. So that just made sense for us. But a lot of the times, most of our goals originate either from like state expectations or district expectations. And then we figure out where our kids are and what little goals we need to have to get them to the bigger district goals or state expectation goals by a certain time. And then to make it more meaningful and impactful to the students, our school is a Leader in Me school. And so every student has a leadership binder, and in that little binder, they each have a graph for every measure we are ever assessing so that they can, every time that they are doing a progress monitoring on ALO or looking at some of their past things on like the ESGI that we've been talking about, just so they can constantly see their progress. In each little graph, they have 2 lines that they can see. They can see the proficiency goal. And then they have, this year we're doing better at giving them their own pathway of progress line in their binder. So we can see it on the computer really easily using the ESG or using the ALO software this year. But it makes it really important and impactful to them when they can see their growth. So sometimes at the very beginning of kindergarten, even before I think a lot of them even understand what we're actually doing on a certain like test or progress monitoring measure. So I think at the beginning of the year, the little sweet souls are sometimes pretty clueless, but because they can see in their own little graph, they can see their own pathway of progress goal or their own information. They slowly get excited about it because they just have maybe like an inner competitiveness with themselves that they can see that they're almost reaching like this line for this goal, or they're almost reaching the proficiency line, or they can see their little graph going up like stairs, like whatever it is, they get really excited about. Anyways, that's all I have to say about goals.
And they do. We're kind of hitting that point right now because we have the aides help us with this progress monitoring because there's so many that, but I had one of the students come in and run in with his book and showed me, look, teacher, I'm here. So they get excited because you're graphing it and they can see they're getting higher on the graph. And so then the other kids all wanted to get their binders and show me, look, teacher, I also did it. And so it does motivate them to want to do better because they can see, because they get to color it in themselves. We draw in the number and they color it in, and the next time they color higher and color higher. And so it does really motivate them to want to do better, and they're excited to share it. So, and this is just barely like this week that I've had multiple kids come running in the room and want to show me their binder because they're so excited because they've made growth. And like I said, then the other kids are like, well, I want to show you mine too. I want to show you mine too. So it is very good to, it's a good motivator for them, and it's visual and right there. So
Yeah, I definitely think having the students, even before you start a progress monitoring, look at their previous goal. Like, this is what happened. So we're going to see if we can reach or beat that goal or where we were last time and make a step. Really allows them, and I think this is part of why we have had success, is because it allows an opportunity for those students to create a buy-in. Why am I doing this? Why is this important? And it's almost just, I don't know, it's creating a buy-in. And then when they do come in, because it happens a lot, like Paula was saying, they come in and they're so excited. And then what's also really neat is the other students like, hey, good job. And they start congratulating, and it's like a pure positive feedback from each other and from the teacher, and just like a little celebration, like, I did it, I did so good. And it just helps build that classroom atmosphere and camaraderie and just all of the things.
I'd like to ask y'all a question real quick. So I think goal setting is a pretty typical thing, right? The state has their district has a goal setting process, and then districts go through and do a goal setting process, and that usually leads to schools. I mean, it trickles on down. But something that I thought was really interesting to you is, the school district, Washington County, is, that they're requiring you to set a goal, but at the same time, um, you all it felt to be a very organic internal. It's a process that you've owned. It doesn't necessarily, even though it's being required, it doesn't necessarily feel like it's this big heavy requirement coming from above. So, well, first, I guess, is that an accurate portrayal? But then, second, how I guess, where does your team ownership of the goals that you're setting really come from?
team ownership.
I can answer the first question about the goal setting and if that's like a natural process for our school. And I would say it is. I think that we've been doing this for a lot of years. This is our 10th year as a Leader in Me school. And that's a big part of Leader in Me. So it's part of our culture now to constantly set goals, and teachers have personal goals, students have individual goals, grade levels have goals, schools, our whole school has goals, and we're tracking them all the time and tracking the growth. And so students can see what part that they are in the big picture of the school-wide goal. So like Lacey was saying, it just creates that buy-in and like I'm a big part of this. So then we have our school-wide goal that's like long-term end-of-year goal. And then like they were saying, we break it up into smaller goals to help us reach that. So every 6 weeks we meet to determine, okay, what's next for our students? What's our next goal? And then we'll evaluate in 6 weeks. And then we work on that. We set intentional practices that are going to help us reach that goal. And then 6 weeks later, we get the data and evaluate, how did we do? Did we reach it? If we did, okay, what's next? And then what's next? And what's next? And we're constantly just breaking it up into littler chunks so that we can get to that end of year goal.
Shannon, you mentioned right there, we're going to set this, we're going to see where we're at with the data. We're going to set this goal, and we're going to do some intentional practices. What does it look like to do an intentional practice? What are some of those things that, you've planned and you're going back to your classroom and doing?
So with our teams that we've met with, kindergarten does this really well as well. But once we set the goal, then the next question is, okay, how are we going to get there? What are the best practices, whether it's accuracy or fluency or letter naming fluency or whatever? What are the best high leverage practices that we can implement today that are going to get us there? And then in that meeting, there's a commitment. Okay, we're going to do this many times a week for this long every day or whatever. And we just commit to each other in that moment what we're going to be doing for the next 6 weeks to make sure that we can ensure that happens.
That's really helpful. It speaks a little bit to your PLC model. And that was kind of our next theme of continuous collaboration. So you're coming together and having these discussions about what you're teaching, how you're teaching, what you're making that commitment to each other about. So you do use your PLC time, and we'd love to hear like what a PLC structure is. But then it also sounds like you have these ongoing collaborations too. Can you speak a little bit about that?
So I will say, Robin's our team leader, and she does a great job of being a team leader. I'm a good cheerleader support gal. So Robin from the get-go became the team leader. She's very organized. And we decided right when Robin and I started teaching together, the first year we decided, well, to just align everything. Okay, here's our scope and sequence. And so we're going to align what we do. And then Lacey came on with the next year. So we align everything. So we talk almost every day. I'll come in and I'm not quite sure what's going on. I'll go to Robin, which she loves, and I'll say, okay, what do we need to do today? What are we teaching, or what are we doing in social studies or science, or whatever it is. So we talk often. And one of the angelic things that Robin does is she has a slide that she shares with us. So she puts a lot of effort into helping us stay aligned. So she has a slide that she'll share, so we just stay right together with everything we do. And then Lacey jumped on board and was just so passionate about letters and what we were learning there. And so she brought in a lot of that information that helped us teach lessons that supported what we're supposed to be teaching. So it's just been a good mesh. But I say, having Robin lead us out and then Lacey jump in and, hey, we should be using this. I mean, I'll go to Lacey sometimes and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. I can't get this student. Just for example, this past week, he's not writing his name. She said, well, I've had him trace it all year. She says, well, do it with a highlighter. Now he's writing his name with just little things that I can go to her or Robin and say, hey, what resource are you using? How can I use this? Because I'm struggling with this kid. So it's ongoing, like almost daily sometimes. I mean, there'll be a few days we may not. But I would say we talk almost every day about things. I don't know. What do you think, Robin and Lacey?
I would say like our PLC process, we have a pretty short meeting time for our actual PLC. And so this is something that just, I personally really like to look at data and just like to know how all of our kids are doing. So I don't mind doing that before the meeting sometime, just looking through all of our software points that we need to have the data already collected, so that when we are meeting together for our relatively short time to actually talk together, we already know we don't have to like fish through different software or different papers or whatever it is to find whatever data we need. We already know which kids are struggling, and we already know what they're struggling in, so that once we're together, we can brainstorm and collaborate on what best practices we've already tried and what other things that we can try, or anyways, to like kind of make our PLC like meeting time the most effective that we can. That's what I would say about our PLC time.
So it sounds like you all are, you have this common assessment, or you have these common things that you're looking at. you have that data together before you're coming into your meeting. So you already know where there's some gaps. And then you're really using that PLC time, as short as it might be, to troubleshoot, problem solve, and goal set, to make sure that you're kind of hitting those points. And so your PLC time sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, very focused on the actual teaching practice and how you're going to go about doing that in your classroom.
Yeah, I would say it's student focusing on the students, and then what we as the teachers are going to do for the students.
That's great.
Because we do have a limited PLC time, I think our collaboration, and we have a group thread, like a group text message, and I feel like we're on that every day, whether it's just like checking in on each other or talking about personal lives. But like as far as PLC, it's kind of just, I feel, solidifying the things that we've already talked about. Like, okay, for sure, this is what we're doing, this is what we think. And then, but it's a continual communication between us. Like, we all are constantly giving feedback, talking. We have a lot of collaboration inside and outside of school.
I would say, and I'm sure Julie, you've seen this in other schools as well, Shannon, maybe with other teams, but I would say that that's hallmarks of great teams that we've talked to, right? Anytime we get a team together where the team is being successful, they tell us about, yes, we have these PLC times, and yes, we're very clear on our data, and yes, we talk about our practices. And almost without fail, they also talk about this kind of collective efficacy of the team, where they're continually talking, they have these beliefs together, they're like kind of all supporting each other in these really ongoing ways. That's kind of hard to force upon somebody, but that you're really lucky to have in your team.
Yeah, and then oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so just one thing about like our continual collaboration. So I think part of why we're effective is we've built a relationship like outside of work. Like, if somebody needs help with something, I can call on either one of them and I know they'll be there to help me. We've built a solid relationship, and so that communication isn't one-sided. It isn't like we feel free to talk to one another because we have that. But because we've built relationships within our team, I think that it also benefits us because we know each other's strengths. And because we know each other's strengths, like Robin's our data girl. Like, she will crunch the numbers and let us know. They all know that I'm not great at checking messages. Like, and they let me know, you missed this. I'm like, okay, thank you. Keep me in the loop. And we just kind of focus on what we're good at and don't worry about what we struggle with. Our team members can help us with that. Like, we just focus on each other's strengths and build upon those.
And I just wanted to jump in and say, listening to this and being in Lacey's classroom and observing some things and chatting with her and Shannon, and just kind of knowing how the school works. And they really focus on hitting those key instructional practices for high quality instruction. They are looking at the data to make their decisions on what they're going to teach next. They are very clear on their learning intentions and success criteria for their students. They look for ways that they can bring engagement into their classroom with their students so that every student is participating in some way and can contribute. And when the students are contributing, they're learning. And they're constantly looking at what is one student doing and who isn't, and providing that feedback to the kids along the way. These are all things that we have seen in the classroom in LaVerkin. And so, those are all very key things to making instructional practices and decisions and making them stick and making it high quality so that students can learn. And so, you know, when you see the success coming out of there, it's because of the things that they are doing, and they're very intentional about it. So they really do hit all of those key things of those instructional practices.
Thanks for bringing it back to that, Julie. I think it's really important. It's, wonderful to have a team that you work so great with, but those, that clarity around instruction is something that anybody can attach to and do. We're getting close to our hour, and so I do want to be mindful of everybody's time. I'm going to give a couple reminders, and then we're going to have everybody kind of share their one takeaway, that one strategy or idea that somebody else could do tomorrow to get some changes going in literacy. So think about that, my friendly panelists, and I'm going to share just a few wrap-up items with you. So there were a couple questions in the chat. Will we be sharing the video? We absolutely will. We'll also be sharing the links that goes along with this research. So Jake wrote a report, and like we mentioned, there were not just this team, but 7 teams, 6 schools that were included across grade levels. And one of the really cool things included in his report is some goal tracking information, and it gives you access to a live sheet that you can get in there and play with too. We have another kind of large scale literacy report that was done over 5 different districts. It was Wasatch, Provo, Nebo, Jordan, and Alpine. And they also wanted to look at some high quality first grade literacy teams. And so we have their takeaways, and you'll see a lot of the same comments that we heard today about following that data, being really clear and intentional on what we're teaching and goal setting. But we'll send out links to all of those. We also want to just bring up that my office houses the Education Innovation Program, and it's really easy, low stakes. Any teacher, coach, librarian, a principal can do this. You get approval at the local level for an idea that you want to put into practice, and you can get up to $5,000 in grant funding to put that innovation into practice. All you have to do at the end is tell us how it went. We want to know if something worked really well, or if it didn't, that's okay. All that information is on our website, and we'll make sure you have the link to that as well. But it's a really cool program that we have that we would love to see more people take advantage of. If you go on there, you'll see about 50 overviews of these that have been approved, and you'll see that some people have used this in their literacy instruction to support multilingual learners with some additional supplies or materials, or to build out some really exciting things around book sets and other ways to learn. Finally, we hope you'll connect with ULEAD through our website, our emails, or social media. And we always want to hear from you on topics we should be exploring or outliers that you know of. If you happen to be a researcher, we would also love to engage you in that. So we will come back to our group and just do our final whip around on what is one thing people should take from this or should put into practice right away. Julie, you want to start? Just to put you on the spot.
Oh, I was hoping to go at the end because I wanted to just say, try, if you've learned about the science of reading and you know something, try it, put it into practice, put that implementation into practice, and so that you can start seeing those changes in your classroom. And it doesn't have to be an overhaul all at once. Just try one thing and then the other. And I also want to just say that we are so grateful for everything that teachers do in the classroom. We couldn't be where we're at without you. You are the ones that are making a difference. You are the boots on the ground. You are the ones that are working with our students every single day. And we can't say how much we appreciate all you do. And we know that you've been doing a lot of hard work and a lot of learning. And we just really appreciate that. So I just wanted to say that too as well.
Well, with that idea, we should definitely hear from our teachers. So Paula, what would you tell teachers to do?
One thing that they should do, well, just believe in their students. I believe that if you believe in your students and believe in yourselves, you'll see great things.
Love that. Robin, what would you say?
I would say to let your kids, let your own students, if you're not already, let them track a goal, one thing that they can see their own progress on, because I think that means a lot to each student.
That's awesome. Lacey?
Probably would be if you're excited about something, it's going to carry over to your class and to your students. I am very excited about finding out the why. Why do we do this certain thing? Why do we do this? And then talking about it and getting excited about it. And they're going to feel that enthusiasm and it's just going to transfer over.
That's awesome. Thank you. Shannon?
Kind of going along with goal setting, but start setting goals and tracking those goals. Let the students track those goals, and you'll start to see collective efficacy among your team and the belief that there are students and not just our individual class students, but we're working together to help all of these students grow.
That's awesome. Thank you. Jake, what would you have us take away?
Yeah, looking back at this, the quote that keeps coming to mind is from Vince Lombardi when he said, "The best do the basics better." And I think any one specific thing that we just talked about in and of itself isn't like super remarkable, but it's the fact that this is a team that's been able to stack lots of little things together to actually make a huge difference. And the things we talked about they're interrelated. It's because they care about their students and they believe all students can learn that they hold themselves to a high standard and they push themselves. And it's because they care about their students learning that they set goals and they collaborate with their team and they work really hard to meet these goals and to understand what good instruction is. And that those are all individual threads that come together that I think is really powerful. So every classroom, I think, has some good things that are happening. There's always something that we can build off of, but it's how can we stack lots of small things together to make a really big impact. And I'm grateful for this team and what they do for our kindergarten students in LaVerkin.
Thank you. And I will give my one takeaway, which is to keep listening to our teachers, because we learn so much when we can open up our doors a little bit and be vulnerable and let other people kind of hear from practices. So we appreciate you so greatly for not only taking part in the report and letting Jake have a peek into what you do, but then also taking the risk to kind of be on screen and let a lot of people hear what you do. It's really powerful for teachers to hear and really fun for us to hear. So that is it for our webinar. We thank you so much for joining us today, and we thank you so much to the LaVerkin team. We will send out a recording and links later this week. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.